Everything earned, it is not given.
All the time, like, you do have to evolve. And so I'm telling the story, like, I'm in San Francisco. I learned, like, this is 2005, 2006, and I had some clients that were in tech and everything, and so I grabbed onto that real quick. I learned website building. I learned SEO and how to optimize all that stuff, and I learned that shit like deep, how to do it. I was even like early coding and stuff like that. Here I'm a hairdresser, and I get pulled in. I'm working 77 Main Lane. I think now that's like Joseph Koza or something, and I get pulled into the office, and they're like, "Hey, listen, you got to take this listing down," and I'm like, "What are you talking about? Why do we got to take the listing?" Well, you're outranking us. You're like number 2 in San Francisco. Like, how the fuck you did that, I don't know, but you can't have that. We can't have a stylist outrank us, on search engine. And I was like, okay, well, what would you like? You want me to fucking go next door and take that ranking with me, And of course they were like backed off and everything. And I realized like how much power I had with that ranking. I took that with me everywhere I went. Every salon I went, I kept that listing, and I would just change the location and all the things that come along with that. But I would often outrank the salon that I would work at, and there was a lot of power with that. And so this is the thing about like having to evolve and stuff. If you're a salon owner and you have 2 stylists come in and one's got 10,000 followers, like real followers on Instagram, and that doesn't necessarily translate to business, okay, versus somebody that doesn't have anything on, yes, you're probably going to go with that person that has more power. There is leverage with that. But yes, on the other side of it, do I think that just focusing on that kind of stuff is going to bring you a ton of business like everybody fucking says on Instagram? Absolutely not. I use an example where if you have somebody that just, hella focuses on their Instagram, they do all the fucking pictures and it's beautiful and they have good following and all that stuff. And you have like a new, client that is like in the area looking for somebody, and they want to go with this person, right? They look at it and they go, dude, I want to go with that person. And so they go and they look them up and they're like not available, right? And they're booked way the fuck out. Now, so then they go to their second choice, which is somebody that they don't have like a beautiful Instagram. But they're available. That fucking person's going to get that new customer. And if that client is going to spend $1,200 a year and you just get 10 of them, well, fuck, that's doing pretty good, And that's the thing that is the old school way, is the availability. A lot of us came from a time when it was like, at least for me, like I came from a time where even it was, top good salons, whatever, but it was a walk-in culture. Like that's what it was about. And so you had to be available. I was always somebody, I'd grease the receptionist or something, you know what I mean? And, everybody be like, Nick, how do you get all these new clients? And the owner kind of figured it out, but they're not going to say anything. I've got high retention. And so, listen, if you got to grease wherever you got to grease, if you got to have that advantage, whether it be on Instagram or SEO or whatever, which is another topic for people that are on suites, you got to take that advantage. And so being like an older stylist, like you don't want to be like fucking outdated. You know what I'm saying? I don't know where things go with, like, for example, like AI. Like I got my first client last year where they just searched up, who does the best A-line haircut or something like that in wherever I was working, and and now she's my client. It was like two people came up, and then she went from there. It was like Gemini or chat or something. And then she went from there to social media, to my Instagram. Boom. She saw my shit. She fucking booked an appointment. And now I have a new client, you know? And so, and she's like, comes all the time, you know? She didn't use the traditional way of like searching. That is gonna definitely be, so we could sit here and be like, fuck AI, fuck all this stuff, you know, this fucking client bringing, you know, the AI picture in, but like in the end of the day, we need to learn out like I don't know what it's going to lead to. Like, I don't know. I use it for some things with my products, whatever, but I don't know where it's going to lead it necessarily. But to think that, you know, it's bullshit. I remember when people thought that online booking was bullshit, you know. To anybody that's young, like all these like older people, you know, stylists like me and up, you know, there was a whole group of them that probably are not around anymore. They were like, oh, there will never be online booking. That's crazy. My client will never do that. And that's probably hard to fucking believe that, but that was real. I remember before that, it was crazy to think, or around that time, like, oh, you have to have a receptionist to have a salon. You cannot not have a receptionist. And so it's like the same mentality. All of these changes that have come, some people didn't want to stop using the cap. You know what I mean? Like changes happen, and you have to adopt those things and adapt to it. But I do believe that there's core values that are gonna make a difference no matter what. And so, you know, I don't know. I would say, like, to anybody that has got a couple decades in this industry or more, like, make sure you don't end up be like the old grumpy man. You know what I mean? Like, it's not gonna serve you well. Just be open-minded to different things. Try to figure out how you can work them in, and keep your business fresh. Even if you're not interested in building new stuff, it feels good to not be like in a rut. And then the second thing would be like to younger stylists, like, yes, don't sit here and think that you're going to come right in here and just because you have a pretty Instagram page or whatever, that you're just going to be top shit. Like, that's not the way it is. Pounding cement, go, you know, shake people's hands and get your message out there. Like, hey, I'm here. This, you know, the old school way of referral like business is always going to be the best. That's just the way it is. And so I think like a combination of those things. But one last topic on this is, you know, the search engine. I would say, like, I have seen this a lot on my Instagram, people reaching out or just like comments and stuff talking about them having a hard time in suite space. And this is a big topic too. There are a lot of like influencer, educator, business coach that are like, I'm going to teach you how to make $1 million, whatever. And you're like, actually, I just like to make a little bit more, you know? And the reality is that I think that the problem that I see is that people are not treating their salon space as if it's their own salon. If you had your own salon with stylists, how would you operate it? Well, you would need a business listing. You would need search engine optimization on all search platforms, specifically Google. You would need a landline. You would need, you know, all of these elements that you would need to run a whole salon. And so when people go into a suite space, they don't think like that. And I think that is a huge fucking problem because you're going into it, and I think there's an idea that you can just build a whole business on Instagram. You take fancy pictures, but that is not the way. Imagine this way. You know, before I came over to my space here with my wife, she already had this space. I had been working in another place for a long time. I expanded out to another city. So I was really building fresh. And I went into a salon, and the amount of phone calls that would come in, right, on a Saturday or whatever, last minuters, and it's not like for a fucking blow dry. Like, some of these clients, they want to highlight, they want like big services. And I immediately, my brain starts thinking, if I was in a studio space, I would want to run this like where I would get that kind of call volume. See, and studio space owners don't think like that. They're not thinking that way, and they're in a bad business mindset that, well, it's my schedule, I could run it however I want, blah blah blah. And I'm like, look, dude, imagine if people perceived your business as a full salon with multiple stylists, right? Because on Google, like if they're listing that and they're looking 1, 2, 3 down or whatever, and you pop up as if you are a full salon, they click it, call in, can I get an appointment, or however, imagine the volume of clientele that could pour in, right? You see what I'm saying? If you treated your salon space, your studio space that way, your suite space that way, imagine that. So this is the thing, unlocking the potentiality of something that is like not being looked at that way. It's like, oh, well, this is a suite space, it's different. Why do you not have a landline? Why do you not have a Google listing? Why do you not, why not have that? Why not treat it as if you have a salon with and then if you're too busy, hire an assistant, and then that assistant train him, put him in on, you see where this goes. If you wanted to only work certain amount of days, you have a full clientele and you're good enough where it is, great for you. But still, why not have that kind of power? If you have the space to be able to have that listing and turn people away, even just to have the leverage. And this is the big thing about everything I'm talking about, right? Is leverage. Leverage is not old school or new school. Leverage is his business. That's what it's all about. Being able to have leverage. And, that's why, like, example of being affiliate with West Coast Blonde, selling product online, selling it in the salon, having these avenues of leverage. What is the biggest flex with leverage? Masses amounts of clientele. That's the fucking flex. So, however you need to do that, I remember here's something with advertising, that it wasn't about advertising so that you get more people coming and buying that product or coming to your business. And this was from an executive. I have a ton of these types of clients. And so she said, it's about making your competitor think that they never have a chance to compete against you. And that has always stuck with me when it comes to all of these things that we're talking about, is leverage. Leverage over your competitor, right? Yes, we're all on the same team. We all want to get along, all the things for sure. But at the end of the day, may the best person win, right? And you're gonna want to perform at a high level. I don't care if you're already booked 3 months out or whatever, okay? Because what kind of leverage is that? None. If you're booked 3 months out, but you still open slots so that you have those people and those fill in, that's fucking power, okay? If you're booked out and you're like, fuck you, no more new business, that's not leverage. That's just means that you're now out of business, really. You're just doing what you're doing, making a paycheck, and that's great. I'm all for that. But if you're somebody that is looking to push your business, and I would personally say that I have this perspective because I know that salons or clients turnover, right? And it, especially with all this talk about raising your prices, that's leverage, right? You can't just raise your prices. You need to have the leverage to raise those prices. Having an influx of clients, there's too many to handle, okay? That the amount of power that you can get for multiple levels is what the goal is, right? But to try to get there by cutting your hours, cutting your availability, No, that's just not the right way. I personally do it that way. I always leave availability open, and that's just because I'm wired like that. Because I know there might be, that I'm going to lose somebody. Somebody moves. Somebody, you're always trying to replace it, and so I think that that is a timeless piece of this business in general, but it's specific our business that is going to keep you going. It's if you're not doing it, the other person's going to do it. And so to come back to the advertising aspect, you're advertising, as she said, you're advertising to make your competitor think they have no chance. I mean, you're not trying to do it because you're trying to gain more business. If you already have a lot of business, you'd be like, what's the point of continuing to do all this stuff? It's about leverage, right? And relevance, keeping yourself relevant makes your clients feel that you have value. You can't just have value on your own. You need to have the perception of value. And so keeping your level high up in the ranks on search engine, keeping yourself at a high level on socials, keeping yourself at a high level at adding new services, new cutting edge projects like West Coast Blondes. Okay, that is the name of the game of this. And I'm going to talk a lot more about this kind of stuff because nobody's fucking talking about it. Everybody's talking about all these other things. They're faux versions of the real thing. In the end of the day, this is my version of it, but I believe that this industry is full of capitalist pigs, sharks, the ones that really make it long term and that stay at the top and continue to climb. I don't want to peak yet. When I peak, I want to retire. You know what I mean? And so if you ain't that way, somebody else is going to be that way. And so the name of the game is relevance and leverage and really trying to always be ahead when it comes to those things. Ultimately, yes, some of these, educators and influencers are trying to sort of convey that, but they're doing it in the wrong way. They themselves are showing relevance, showing, leverage that way. That's why you're attracted to it. That's why you're probably watching this right now, right? And so ultimately, as a hairdresser, that is a big part of our whole job, to try to keep ourselves at a higher level always. So if you're an older stylist, right, coming back to the beginning, just going off about young stylists and how they're doing, it's not a winning perspective for your own clientele. You're not going to gain a lot of younger people that way. It's just not good. And if you're a younger person, understanding that outperforming your competitor, whether it be availability or just work ethic in general, these are the things that, for me, in 25 years plus, that I've seen outdo everyone else.